Welcome back to a Coffee with Coach. We've got our Dunkin Coffee here today in the Crunch video room. Lucas Vivalli and Crunch head coach Joel Bouchard. Joel, we're talking here at the end of this regular season for the Crunch, and we've seen a lot of NHL debuts this year with this team. It's been an exciting year. But let's talk about you and your path to the NHL. You played in the NHL. You played over 300 games in the league. Everyone's got their own path. What's yours?
It was, I was my first 2 years in the AHL almost full-time, and I was a 6th-round pick, so it wasn't a superstar by any means, just a guy that got his name called and had a chance to get an opportunity to sign a contract and play in the American League, and obviously a pretty decent hockey player in junior, but when you get to the pro, everybody's pretty decent in junior A, NCAA, you all know how it works. So my first 2 years got called up a couple of times, played in a couple of games, got back sent down. I wasn't ready, obviously, as a player. I was more to fill in for injuries. It was just a few games here and there. But by the end of my second year American League, I was doing pretty well. My partner was Todd Simpson, who played in the NHL too. We played together down the road. But we went in the playoff pretty deep, and we were short in staff and played a lot of minutes. And when I got to camp, I felt I was already probably a better pro and closer to the NHL. I had a really good camp. That being said, the Flames were pretty tight on defense. They had good defensemen. They had Holder, Cruz, so it kind of goes with contracts. So you kind of know you might have that last spot, and we had a couple of guys that were doing pretty well. So I had a really good camp, and in practice, I got a slap shot in the eye. Yeah. And at the time, we weren't wearing visors, so went to the hospital, had surgery, broken orbital bone, didn't see out of my eye for like 24 hours, and I had a lot of support from Al Coates, the general manager at the time, and even Mike Sullivan, the coach from Boston, that I didn't really know. I was just a young guy, and took the time to come to the hospital, and it was pretty dramatic for 24 or 48 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty scary too.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And I was having a good training camp, but then you're like I said, probably in the fight, but now I was not in the fight. Training camp keep going. Steve Chason and James Patrick, two good friends of mine actually down the road, got injury, long-term injury, so that freed 2 spots. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm back, and it's the end of training camp, and I was looking pretty good. They say, well, Joel, come back on the ice. And season was already started, a couple of games, and some younger guy were maybe not doing as well. So they kind of said, well, you're here, practice, and we'll see. So I will always remember I had to wear a full cage for like 4 months, and which was all right for me. And I had a black eye. I looked like I wasn't great, and I remember like staff going like, you gotta be okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. So a couple of practice, and then I looked pretty decent, I would say, I guess. So they said, come on the road with us. So we're going to Detroit on the East Coast trip. Mm-hmm. And I'll remember because I wasn't kind of on the team. Everybody was kind of confirmed, but it was like, is Joel what is he gonna do? We have spot. Yeah. It's available. It's for you to grab. Yeah. So I remember packing my stuff before going on the trip, and everybody had a Calgary Flame bags, and I had a St. John Flame bag. I was kind of telling you a message, hey,
we'll see.
So we got on the road. They put me in the first game. I played really well. I think it was against Detroit that first game, and never looked back. And a few days later, we're in Montreal, playing the Habs, and I was in the lineup. And I think in my 3rd or 4th game, I scored at Madison Square Garden, my first NHL goal. So it kind of made it, it went from eye injury, very scary, to 2 weeks later, being on the ice in the NHL, and kind of got back with a Calgary Flame bag.
Yeah, I was going to say, when did you get the bag? When did they give you that bag?
On the way back. And when you're in the game, you kind of know when you're in for a cup of tea or they're going to give you a chance. And as soon as we got back from that road trip, I could tell from my position on the ice, my ice time, the competition, you kind of feel it, and they were really happy, and he got me, in that year, my average time I think was 23 minutes or something like that, 22. I was a young guy, and we were an elite team, obviously. Sometimes you make it because there's a need, but it's just a good story to say how bad it was, and then it turned out pretty good. And my friend, Steve Chason and James Patrick got back later on, and I got to play with them and room with them. And Steve is now passed, but it was a good experience. And obviously, everybody's got a different path to the NHL, and mine is like everybody else. It's a little unique in his own way.
And here, 30 years later, I'm sure it helps you connect with the guys this year too about their paths and how to go about it.
I think where I connect the most, and it hurts me, is the injury, because I've played 380 some game. I must have missed like 300 from injury or 2-something, missed full years and stuff. So especially later in my career, I feel for guys when they get injured. I'm behind the bench and I feel when they get hit. I feel when they come to the rink and they get I just lived it so much. I have that compassion about it. But I also was pretty lucky because I always came back. I always came back and made it back to the NHL, even if it was a little stint in the minors. I always found a way to not let the game kind of get away from me, even if I was missing a lot of time in hockey. So that's why I think I connect with the guys on that adversity and that kind of situation. And now that I think about it, maybe my entry in the NHL was just an introduction to my career, made and injured a lot. But sometimes people said I didn't. I got injured a lot. I was going all out. I was all out, and kind of maybe got me injured a lot. But on the flip side, I do think it's one of the reasons why I made it to the NHL. It's kind of that ratio where, but it's good to go back in memory lane and think about my first step in the NHL.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that story. And again, like you said, you got that goal in Madison Square Garden. And then
Mike Richter.
Hey, there you go. That's a pretty good
Richter,
one.
which is actually, a lot of times people ask you, who did you score first goal? Who was it against? And then they say, it's Mike Richter.
Yeah, that's a pretty good name.
Just so you know, it was a 5-hole shot on the PK that I jump in the rush. And all I wanted to do is hit the middle of the net, and I did, because I got the 5-hole.
I love it. And you'll never forget that moment.
Oh, no,
it's so cool.
Madison Square Garden on top. And I did play for the Rangers later on, and it was funny because when we practice, obviously you know where that spot is on the ice, and it always reminded me when I got on the ice in Madison Square Garden for practice or games or whatever. It was like,
this is the one.
That was actually the spot, right? There, where I got it done.
That's so cool. Well, thanks again for sharing it. Joel Bouchard, head coach of the Crunch. We got our coffee here today, Coffee with Coach, and we'll be back again real soon.